that's those are a lot of the colored pictures that I've,
The Alcos.
Dick Stauber, not Dick Stauber, Joe Stauber, from Marshfield. He was a real fan.
See, that was my depot right there. Recognize that. My office was right inside of this third part. This was Reuben Bathke, the car tapper here. Freight house was behind that. This was going into the waiting room here, and on the send down here was where the trainmen and everything had their quarters. They had showers in there. This was a little bit bigger than our switch engines here, although we did use them sometimes. We had the little Alcos there too.
Little S1s, I would assume.
Yep, little S1s. And a lot of these are GP35s, GP39s. We didn't have many 39s.
Now these pictures here are a couple of the few pictures that I have of trains down at the New Yard, down by Edgetown.
Yep. Oh, yep. That's where.
Did you take most of these, or you?
That's where all our trains were made up.
Almost none of these were taken by me. I was born in '71, so by the time I learned how to point a camera, the Sioux line was almost out of Marshfield.
Yeah. There's one of the old CNW one there in Northwestern Pillage there.
That's right at the east end of the yard.
Yeah, that would be going toward Eland. Here, the Edgetown Tavern was right up here. Yeah. All trains were made up down in the yard, down there at Marshfield, because the other place there was room. They made them up on the main line. Because we used to send back to Altoona, sometimes we'd have 150, 60 car trains.
Really?
And they'd get a run out of that yard, and it was uphill all the way up past Oak Street, past Weber's Dairy, before it went a little downgrade.
Down towards the river.
Yep. And you'd get old Axel Volkman, was speed merchant from day one. He used to challenge me on how fast I could say car numbers going by. He didn't know I was only saying the last three numbers. Oh, Axel, yeah. Yeah, he was a fast engineer. Man, but I tell you, when you heard him hit the horn, get the hell out of the way, because he was coming through there, hell bent for election. The cops would come down, they'd talk to me and said, how in the hell fast was that train going? Anyway, I said, oh, just the speed limit.
Yeah, our speed limit.
Yeah.
That's a circus train here.
Yeah.
I think that was a newspaper clipping. I think Keith Meacham sent that to me.
I would say from the cars, now that is a 58 Ford here. That's a 60 Chevrolet. Remember those, Arlyn? That's a Mercury.
Yeah, I guess not.
That'd be a Chevrolet, I think, with that roof line. Here's a Chevrolet station wagon here.
Is that a Nomad?
Nope. Nomads are a little different. Nomads had all the chrome up and down the thing, and they always had chrome all the way across the roofs. This is what we call the Crummy. That's in Marshfield too. That's the original Marshfield Clinic. Right there. There's my depot in all its glory. And the street was here. This was the old yard. Fuel oil tanks over here. This is that welfare room on this end. This is where we ate a lot of food, right in the Downtowner restaurant. It was 37 steps from the back door to the restaurant.
Unless you're hungry, they're 35 or 34 at big steps, huh?
Yeah, my buddy's still down there too. And right here, fronting on both streets, Main and the tracks, was the old Montreal Hotel, the Bloom Brothers. This here was built in place where the roundhouse used to sit here, and that became a Wahlberg distribution center, and my home was right across the street from that. Looks like our switch engineer, 1212. Hard to say which.
A lot of the
took them in
pictures.
for inspection. A lot of snow there.
A lot of the pictures in this.
Are this
one
Meachams?
No, these are mostly Staubers.
Oh, okay.
But he did a lot of roster shots, so there's, now these are Meachams.
Oh, okay.
There's a couple there. And this here, these we're getting into Paul Barron's.
This is the old weigh scale house. This is a scale here.
The live rail and the dead rail.
In Marshfield? Okay.
We weighed cars a hell of a while.
This is down, what is the name of that road? Columbia Road. That's where that picture was taken. Down by Columbia.
Yeah. That's the big marsh down
Oh yeah?
there.
It's 108 and 9, or 109. I don't remember which one it is on the bottom.
Yeah, I used to call crews for him. This is in 39. That's the old tower. This street.
I think
This
that's
was in
Fond du
Fond du
Lac.
Lac, yeah.
Is that 100? Oh, Train 9. Train 9. So that's the one through the rapids.
Yeah. Yeah, 108 and 109 ran from Elam to Maryland and returned.
There you can see the old roundhouse.
Oh, yeah. When the old depot would have put up the brick up.
1908.
Yeah, now see my house. Chet Schaefer, who was a roundhouse foreman, is the guy that sold me his house.
Okay.
Right here. Cedar Street ran right behind that. And my house was right over here. I was pretty close to work.
I bet you that was convenient in the wintertime. Well, anytime you
Yeah.
didn't have to drive your
Well,
car.
this- you know, that's a while ago. That's back in the old horse and buggy
Mhm.
days, right?
1908 or so.
1908. This was, of course, all gone here.
They still have a depressed track for the cinder car back then when you were in Marshfield?
Nope, that was all gone.
Okay.
The fuel oil tanks, diesel fuel tanks for refueling diesels were right here on the old house track. And the turntable was right there. You see just part of it right there. That was the turntable.
That one's Stratford there on the bottom.
Yeah, Thorpe was the agent there.
There's Eland.
Yep.
Oh, that's Wausau.
This is
These
Wausau.
three are-
Eland, I was terminal superintendent there. There's the old depot right there. This would have been coming from Green Bay here.
Okay. That's the Eland Depot after they painted it gray.
Yeah. Oh, didn't recognize it.
It's still there.
Oh
In
yeah.
fact, they
Oh, it is still
restored it.
there.
They restored it. It's a museum.
Hmm. This is the one that spent a lot of time in our area, 1208. Switching.
They have those little cab heaters on them.
Mm-hmm. 1212 was the same class. I still, my favorite engines were the covered wagons.
F units.
The F9s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right here, she's going to hell already when she didn't got any weeds or none. When I was there, this was so damn big. There was no weeds here, no weeds up here, nothing. This was an all paving bricks. This whole thing.
Oh, picture down there. That's on the connecting track down by Cedar Street.
Okay.
Over by the Y.
Crossover.
Right.
Yeah. We delivered our Sioux Line interchange cars down there
Okay.
on that Y track.
Sure. I think that one's it for that one.
What are your slides in front? Same type of thing?
Yeah, they're mostly the same pictures that you can see in there. Probably this one is the best. Take those files out of there. A lot of them I've had printed up.
Hebron, Illinois, huh? Oh, Barron. Now there was a lot of Barons in Marshfield.
Oh yeah?
Yep.
He actually, I don't know if he had relatives in Marshfield, but they had a vacation home down by Columbia Road.
Okay.
That's why he had that picture.
Looking at
Quite
this picture,
interesting.
you know what that was under construction?
That's the clinic, I think, the old clinic.
That's when they were building it, building onto it. I remember when it was 2 stories. 1052. They didn't like to switch. You yanked the arms right off your switch when these damn things, so the steps are so damn high.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Those Fairbanks Morse engines.
Ooh.
That's probably why they weren't very popular with the railroads either.
No. I tell you, getting on and off these, this is okay up in front of it, but back here, it was, see the length of that grab rail?
Here too,
Yep.
on road
Just
unit.
pull your damn arms right off. I see some of the little conductors on the, see how this curb iron falls? There's a reason for that. They had hooked their arm. When the conductor come to go on and they couldn't stop, afraid they couldn't get going again. Some of them were whipping right along when that conductor, he'd grab and his arm would go behind that. There was room like this.
Sure.
And it would just fling him right up in the air and his feet would hit here on the deck. Hopefully. I see some pretty damn old conductors who are pretty deft on their feet. I thought, Christ, you're going to try and get on there, right? Especially like Dopey Sherman and some of those guys. They'll have some half snozzled up most of the time. But their feet would be way up here when they hit that damn thing.
Wow. That's dangerous.
Yeah, some of them didn't make it. Okay, there's the old 1265. We had a house track. I developed an industry over there with roller homes in Marshfield.
Sure.
And Marshfield homes, where we shipped those high, wide mobile homes all over the United States. I found a car that was adaptable to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, come on, we're going to take I used to be the supervising agent up at Altoona.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I saw some of the 472 series. I think you can use. John Carpenter was his name.
Mm-hmm.
He was the head of Marshfield Homes. And so we went up, he said, where in the hell's everybody been? This is exactly what we're going to look at, because they had wooden floors.
Mm-hmm.
And they could crib them and everything. But that turned out to be big business for the railroad. And you had to have a clearance on every damn one of them all the way to destination. We got a few back, the corners missing.
Well, I heard they could only go down through Maryland. They couldn't go through Wausau, or is it
Right.
vice versa?
Yeah, you had to take everything out to double track
Okay.
side. There's old Marshfield. This was a freight house door right here. We used to set what we call the way car. All the stuff comes in and run the plank across to this thing here and then walk everything over with a big two-wheel cart. And see where we stored our barrels. And that's where Reuben threw all his junk brake shoes and all that stuff. This was Reuben's.
Reuben was a car knocker?
He was a car knocker. Reuben Teskey. Nicest guy you ever want to meet. But that's where and then the junk guy would come by and pick him up there.
Shapiro?
That was one of them. There was that guy way down on Cedar, right near Weyerhaeuser plant down there.
Okay. I don't know the name there.
There's a good view of Marshfield Depot. This is Bloom Brothers Bedding Factory down there. God, they also made good foam mattresses.
Oh, yeah?
We went down and had some made for camping.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place they had 8-inch foam mattresses.
Huh.
And Lori sold denim covers for them now. Just to fit the back of our station wagon. 2-piece, looked great.
That's the
There's the
same
scale.
picture you saw before, I think. Again, these are down at Columbia Road.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, that was at Columbia Road.
1970, I was long gone.
10 miles an hour the whole way by then.
Bring that one down over there. So there's on top the lantern.
This one here?
That's a pretty rare one.
Wow, that's a beauty.
It's got both of them on there.
Oh, wow.
It's the only one I've ever seen.
You better hold on to that one.
I just shipped my son last week. I was talking to him this morning in New Jersey. I shipped Rich 6 lanterns, colored ones with the name of the railroad on it. They're usually up on top. They are, most of the time they're up here, but I always like the ones in the glass. But, that's the only one I've ever seen. It's in beautiful condition.
I would say.
See, it says Northwest.
Yeah, yeah, that's,
CSC PM&O down there.
that's pretty unique.
The only one I've ever seen.
Now, these were similar to the lanterns that were on all the switches in the yard?
No, those
Okay.
fit into a bracket thing. I did have one of those. You can bring that picture over there if you wanted to document.
Okay.
That's pretty old. See the date on that?
1894. Spooner.
Arlen was just a kid then.
Yeah, just barely.
That's a train order from the Omaha.
Fredericks and Roddy.
You had to address the conductor and the engineer, and also your train number. There's train 64 at Clayton, Wisconsin.
No, Clayton South. Wait,
Yep.
where is Clayton?
Down at Turtle Lake.
West of
Okay.
here. Real small town. just
Cumberland. Okay, so this is on the line down to the Twin Cities, correct?
Okay.
Two
It's
specials.
the main line and North Line.
Right.
I worked there too.
So what about those lanterns now? That was used in a bracket where?
Those that were in switch lamps and whatever, they had a little bracket, and then there was a
Right.
female part on the bottom,
Right.
and it set.
That's more of a switch lantern, wasn't it?
This here is a switch
Hand
lantern.
switch lantern, yeah.
And I don't know if I kept it. I got some of the colored ones. I suppose around to see the hats I got up there. Omaha hats, the green one and the black one.
Now, where were you?
Tough to come by too.
Where'd you get those? Out of a magazine, or did you get those when you worked for the railroad? Or?
No, I got them at a railroad expo,
Oh.
and those are both brand new.
Say, you don't see them.
You don't see them.
I was kind of surprised when I saw yours.
It's a memorabilia one.
Is that
you
Omaha?
know.
Yeah. That's, is that the same logo I have?
Yeah, it's the same one, yep. You might have bought that in Rice Lake down here.
I might have.
My
yeah.
friend, I work for him, we sell these
Okay.
things on it, he needs
Alright.
help, but I think it's the same.
That's the green.
Looks very
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, mine's a little, yeah, it's a little different patch on it. Mine's a little more recent than yours, I think.
Probably, yeah.
But I just
Yeah,
got it
the
this
black
year.
one.
Oh.
That's why.
You know one thing you don't see anymore is chromer caps, do you?
They're kinda coming back. I got one
Right.
and stuff, and yeah.
They're
You know what
made in,
chromers are?
yeah, they're made in.
Oshkosh were there.
Well, originally they may have been, but now they're made up in
Michigan, is
Hurley,
it?
Ironwood.
Ironwood, that's what it is, yeah,
I
Ironwood.
always liked to, all the railroad guys wore chromer
Yep.
caps,
Yep.
every damn one. And then the old black felt ones, you know, with the ear lappers that pulled down, had a lace in the front.
They're making them about all colors now.
Oh.
You know, red, green, gray, black, most of them were black
This
before.
is Columbia again. Remember sometimes when we had to transfer power out of Marshfield, we would come with 6 diesels
Really?
to make it motor.
Hmm.
No traction motors, and guys knew how to get the most out of them. Now this here, that's probably 108 or 109. Oh, this looks like storage over here.
He had said that they were camper maintenance away cars. 'Cause I
Okay.
think this was in like 1976
See, now
or
this,
something.
this is what a Jim Crow car kind of looked like. See down here, they had a baggage door in it.
Mm-hmm.
They were half baggage and express, and the other half passenger car. They called them Jim Crows.
Okay.
A lot of times, you had a company out of St. Paul called the A.W. Partridge Company. That's where the Gandhi dancers came from. They were all hired by them, contracted out to the railroad during the summertime to do track work. Now, if you want to lead a rough life, and fights and drinking and good God.
Oh, I believe it.
What unit is this? Oh, that's Northwestern.
Yeah, it's a former
This-
Frisco.
Frisco,
actually.
isn't it? Yeah,
Frisco, yeah.
I recognize Frisco right away, and that's why I was wondering if they,
That's their color scheme.
yeah. But they purchased it obviously and relettered it.
Yeah, with some of those railroads, I just
That one here. That's one of those Katie Baldwins. They called them water buffaloes.
water.
Aren't they
That's
funny
what they
looking?
were too. They were ungainly. They didn't use them at all for switching because going back and forth, the traction motors were so slow to engage.
Really?
Just not good at all. This is at Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
EMD, you know what it stands for?
Electromotive Division, I think.
That's what it stands for.
I thought you had something else like a fib on there coming up. You probably-
Yeah, Maryland. I spent a lot of time there. We used to end Maryland. Of course, I don't see any pictures of that. This is the line. This could be the house track, or this could be the line that went out to Marshfield over here. But back in my heyday time, over here, there was another covered platform on the east side of the second track. And that was because 401 stopped there. And the passengers had to have it looking pretty nice, so that was all cobblestone over there too. A big platform. And so you had good platforms, cobblestone on each side, because I used to, 108 used to park along over here, and then we'd unload the mail, and the cobblestone went all the way across the tracks.
Oh, really?
Because we had those express, big four-wheeled express cars.
Sure.
We'd have to haul them over, and then we'd haul them up by our depot. There was two parts to our depot, a covered part, and then that's where the Star Routes mail trucks would pull in. And they always knew we had to park their carts in certain spots where they knew what they were. Falls Creek, and I walked across that a lot of times. My in-laws live right.
Oh, yeah?
Used to live right down here. Falls Creek. In fact, just last year we took the kayak and go right up underneath Falls Creek right up to the falls.
You see all the tie plates underneath those rails?
Oh yeah.
There are none.
Oh God, there must not be any the way you're talking.
Yeah, I know. Benny scrapped a lot of that stuff off. This is when they were closing down, and they scrapped every nickel's worth of scrap they could find. That's all number one cast here. Those plates. There's the feed company, Chile. The railroad was an efficient hauler of bulk commodities. Efficient.
There's some nice bass in that river.
You don't want to be running your motor very much.
No.
Just a little rocky.
Remember going underneath that thing and never saw a train, you know, if you guys going underneath it, I thought, wow.
I wish I would have brought along my wreck photos. I've got pictures someplace at home of a wreck in Granton.
Okay. Yeah, like I was telling Arlyn in our interview, I came across that one by Price. In fact, I was going to work on the line up there. Looked out there and I see that red caboose lantern where it shouldn't be.
Oh.
Maryland, well, that's the Maryland depot. This is a Green Bay crossing right here. And this was a drive-through here. This was a signal making sections. This is the relays for the crossing. And this is where the telegraph. This actually was the Green Bay and Western side, more or less. And that the express office, and everything was handled by the same operator. Waiting room was out here.
So GBW didn't have their own operator or anything?
No.
Okay.
And the old hotel, but we just ate there a few weeks ago. Good food. Through Sydney, huh?
Now there was a grade at Sydney, was there not?
Yeah.
A pretty substantial grade?
Substantial grade going east, I believe.
I just seem to remember Jerry saying something about it.
Yeah. 2 Jeeps. That Maryland was a busy spot. 24-hour depot.
Yeah.
My wife grew up there. The watering hole, that's Buzz's. I lived right down the street. But you know, this was in motel here, downtown motel.
Can't think of the guy's name now. He was the footboard yardmaster in Marshfield in the later years. I can't think of his name. Anyway, my dad said that.
Bob Keith?
Yeah, Bob Keith. No, Bob Paulson.
Bobby Paulson, know him well. He was a black cover ball boy. You know, he never lost his Norwegian brogue. Bobby Paulson.
This is back by the Little Brothers there.
Yep.
That's a connecting track down to Marshfield in Texas.
Yep. That's where the coal went down.
There was coal off the Northwestern?
Oh, sure.
Really?
Yeah, we'd get not like the Sioux line, but we ran coal down there, sure.
Really? Right down the power plant? Wow, that's the first
Well, we
time
had to
I've
give
ever-
it to the Sioux to take in it, we didn't have trackage rates in there.
Oh, okay, so you just drop it off in that
Yep.
track back there.
Yeah, we picked it up back down there.
Huh.
Yeah, Blue Brothers Box Company.
There was another track that went along the side here that went down to that Standard Oil plant down there.
Yep. John Newkirchen was his name.
Oh.
This guy worked for him was Ed. So Sioux line, Lyman.
That's
This should be South Cedar Street.
that's actually 4th Street there. That's right behind
Before,
that.
that's the Dell's Bar is where.
That would be right about over
Over
here
here,
someplace, yeah.
And Sonny Brown,
Yep.
Sonny was a good food.
I think it's still in the Brown family too. Yeah, that place is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
My sister used to walk that on her way to school.
Yeah.
She said one morning she was walking through there and some guy came out of there after her. Chased her. Yeah, so I don't know if he was a
That's
hobo or...
We never saw many hobos around Marshall. There really wasn't anything there for Altoona. Huh. Neilsville. That's the replacement depot I worked at. The big depot was there. The condenser was going.
Well, now you knew the operator there. That was the guy that...
And Lee Heimstead?
I thought he said he had that accident with his car.
Oh, that Ralph Bunkelman.
Okay.
Ralph was my chief clerk at Marshfield.
Oh.
He lived in Niels.
Oh, but he went back and forth. That's right.
He and I, when I lived at Blacker before I moved over there, he'd drive one week and I'd drive the next week. He had an old Studebaker. And he'd go like hell to the top of the hill and coast as far as he could coast.
Hi.
Ralph Bunkelman. Ralph Bunkelman.
Nick and Nancy want to know if we want to golf at a quarter to 2. Okay.
Can't do it. Not with my shoulder.
All right.
I got a torn rotator cuff.
Oh, no.
Yeah, this is some interesting stuff here. They have a coal company down here. I'm not real good because I cut my finger real bad on opening up a boxcar on the seal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only place. And then I found out I was allergic to the tetanus shot.
Oh,
I went
no.
up to the clinic and they said, no, you're going to have to take the shot and stay here for an hour. So I did. And I got a reaction to it. I said, just remember, you have to take the antitoxin. Sperry Rail Service. Yep. Remember those, Aaron?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. They had right for practically everybody.
Mm-hmm.
They even pulled off pasture trains to the side so the Sperry Rail could go through.
Because they were kind of expensive to get through there, I imagine.
Kind of.
You know,
Yeah.
priority.
Said that it took him 2 days to travel from Marshfield to Maryland.
Oh, yeah.
That's very
Pretty
real.
damn slow.
Well, he said that there were so many defects.
Yeah, then they have to stop and chart everything and put it down. Southwest leg of the Y.
So straight ahead would have been towards the new yard.
Towards the
of
new yard,
Barons.
Did you take these?
No.
Okay.
This is
Well, I guess it's 79. You
This is
could have.
Paul Barron's. Paul
Right,
Barron's.
Right.
This is the Y track that goes to Wausau.
Now, wasn't there a spur track off of here that went up by the refrigerator dealer or something? Was there an industry right off of there? Was it Nickens? No, not Nickens.
Clarence Minton, he just had an appliance store up there. I don't remember if it would have come off the Sioux line.
Okay.
Once we left here and connected up with the Sioux line here, that was the end of our trackage race. This, they used to hump up out of here, this is headed east here. The old Yellow River.
Had a derailment there in the last few years too.
The road that got so bad. I think all the rails are going there.
There you can see they had the Marshfield switcher tucked in behind.
Yeah. That's when they had to send it in for the power, for the Altoona. Sonny used to have a really nice drive-in root beer meat stand in Marshfield, just down from the depot, about 2 blocks. Sonny died of liver disease, a fairly young man, big heavy set guy. Sonny,
You can see I think that's when they had the derailment over in the
Oh.
golf course. They had dirt stuck in the side of the boxcar yet. And if you look in the background on a couple of these pictures, you'll see those mobile homes you were talking about.
yeah.
I don't know if they're in these, but you'll
This
see
is
it
the
come up.
clinic. This is the clinic. You know, I have an awful nice park in Marshfield down there at the wildlife, by the old swimming pool. The old ballroom.
You can see. Well, that was one of the trailer depots. They made those up in Stratford, didn't they?
No, they were made out right next door to the Roddus plant, the warehouses. I knew it as Roddus Plywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a big plant just west of Roddus Plywood warehouse.
Okay.
It's called Marshfield Homes Incorporated. Rolla Home was
Oh
on
yeah,
the other
yeah,
way.
yeah. Okay.
Rolla Home was the other way. That was a competitor.
Right.
Rolla Home never got much into the shipping of the motorhome. That was the Fry brothers.
Okay.
Cheaper than imitation plastic.
Yeah, Meacham was telling me that he thought that those were made by North Star up at Stratford, and I said, well, if they're made in Stratford, why would they truck them to Marshfield?
Yeah, so they were made right in Marshfield homes. Most of the 98% of the homes going on Marshfield on rail were from Marshfield. Don Carpenter was a traffic manager.
My dad worked for Marshfield Homes when he was a kid.
Okay. This was a nice house.
It's Wausau there.
Didn't very often keep them that clean.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
This. The worst thing that ever happened to the Northwestern and the Omaha was Benny Heineman. He should have stayed in the goddamn scrap business.
He did?
He sold off.
He did?
Yeah, he sold off all that that yard of ours down there, all the land around it.
Oh,
He
yeah?
just raped the railroad. He just raped it. And you come to find out, all that scrap went to a Brothers was the last.
Peelet Brothers?
In Racine, Waukegan. Come to find out, for Christ's sake, they were cousins. There was no under the table money there, I'll bet.
Mm-hmm.
Wally Shutter, Barney Johnson, Hannafin, knew them all. Knew them all.
You know Bob Guile?
Yeah, from Maryland.
Yeah. He's the one that took these pictures.
Oh, okay.
That's how I got in
He used
touch
to
with
have
Jerry.
Giles Motel.
Oh, really?
Sure, and then he had a real estate business and insurance. Guile Insurance for years and years.
He lives up in Gordon now.
Whatever he does. Yeah.
Right next to the old Northwestern right-of-way. Right in between the Northwestern and the Sioux. There's the last. Is that the lineup at the Maryland Depot? Is that what that is, a lineup?
Yep, that's the lineup. Everybody had to have one.
How often did you have to type one of those up?
Twice a day.
Okay.
Yeah, went in the morning, about third trick operator took that, in time after 5 a.m.
Okay.
And then there was one right after lunchtime for the afternoon. I wasn't the evening one because all the guys were track crews were working in on it. Good pictures.
He included some newspaper articles. Now Gene Anderson is related to him somehow as well, but I'm not
Jerry's
sure.
brother.
Oh.
Jerry Hagan's sister, I should say.
Okay.
Yeah, knew their dad, Mike. He was a conductor on the railroad out of Altoona for years and years.
Huh.
Mike Hagan. There was 2 kids, Gene and Jerry. She married the signal maintainer on there, Harley Anderson. We called them curls.
Uh-huh.
Got a haircut like that long. Yeah, and the signal maintainer there, John Enger, we called him Indian Enger, nice, big athletic guy. And his boy, Larry Enger, was a partner of Anderson, the signal maintainers. The 2 of them were the signal maintainers.
Oh.
Bill Butler, which Bill Butler is that?
That I couldn't tell you.
Bill Butler is here in Rice Lake, in the restaurant.
Yeah, he's a chef.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the same guy, probably.
I stole
Yes,
a brick
please.
out of there when they tore it down.
Oh,
I got it somewhere.
it looks like it, no, doesn't it?
Yeah.
80-year-old North Richmond Railroad.
They attempted to move it down to the park. And one of the doctors said that if they could come up with the other half of the money, that he'd put up half.
Yeah.
But then they found out that because of the way the depot was constructed, they couldn't do it. But these were just trains when the Northwestern started going over the Wisconsin Central.
They ate food there too. End of the line restaurant it was called. And now, that ain't even there anymore. My office turned out to be the kitchen.
You can't hardly even tell there was a railroad in Marshfield there anymore. These were just some black and whites that I took. This is down at the new yard. There was some little shack down
That's
there.
that old treatment shack. We had telephone to it.
Okay.
Yeah, they'd go down there. The head end brakeman a lot of times would call me on the crank phone. He says, "We're ready to come. Get the hell out of the way." And when they had a heavy drag,
Sure.
I could hear him in the depot. Now you're talking, I suppose you're talking 1.5 miles from the depot down to the west yard down there, from where
That's
he
about right.
called. And when they started those traction motors and let them run, boy, you could hear them clear up to the depot. And they look down there and you'd see when they were making that curve, the black smoke coming out of the top of that damn diesel. And they just, I'd go down by the crossing, because people always tend to misjudge the speed of a railroad locomotive, particularly when they were so used to it on the street. They were going around the damn signals and stuff like that, because the switch engine was there all the time. And that caused some accidents over time. And Oak Street used to be one of our worst.
Really?
Direct route to the hospital up there, and everybody coming in out of the country. But when I see him, when he would break ground coming, probably South Cedar Street down there, when the engines were there, then I walked out and stopped all the traffic. And let him run, because if you had 160, 75 cars coming up, that was coming up without grade all the way.
Sure.
Coming out of the hole, they called it. That's why he called me. He says, "We're leaving now." And because when they knew they had that kind of a drag, usually a lot of times they would go slow. They come by the depot and they pick up the conductor there. But when they had a big drag, our switch engine took the conductor and ran him down to the yard and get it in the house track and take it as close to the caboose as they could get.
Well, they could run around on the Sioux there, couldn't they? Down at the new yard?
Yeah, they could run around there. But we never knew where the Sioux line was going to be, so that was always
This was actually looking at the new yard. Couldn't hardly even tell there was anything there anymore. And this was the connecting track between the Sioux.
the Y track over here.
And this is there was a boxcar door I found over there. Now that's the expressway, where the expressway is. And Meacham was telling me there were a couple of graves back there somewhere too. This is Oak Street.
Okay.
That's the diamond with the Marshfield in Texas.
Yeah, how that's growing up, huh?
And this was down at the new yard. They still had power running down there.
Mhm.
This was in like 2003. These are just, that's the last train on the Wausau line.
Yeah.
J.J. Schmidt, I know him pretty well. He was the engineer in Sheboygan for a while.
Didn't know him at
Last
all.
days. He was a Northwestern guy.
There's Elam, that was the agent there too. Oops, every place I didn't work.
You know, this one shot here looked like this didn't have a number board over here, but maybe just a light. I have the lights on. You'd see it.
Yeah, they're.
Or maybe the bulbs burned out behind it or something. So I thought that was the same unit. Yeah, it's 820.
Well, I think that was on, no, that would be on the same day, huh?
Yeah. In fact, there's a little kind of a snout nose here. It might have been just behind that. See how this
Does that come through?
this here headlight stuck out a little ways.
That was after the Fox River Valley took over, and then they would pay back the Northwestern for the hours on the engines by letting them run over to Wausau with them Jeep 30s,
You know what this light and that light was? And what was it when it was burning white?
Extra.
Oh, okay.
They had actually a couple, when these were burning yellow, then it was a second section of the main train.
Oh, okay.
Not running extra, had the same rights and everything, like if you were running, like say, 490, and you rather than run one extra, which has to protect against everything, you ran them as a second section of 490, then you burn yellow.
Okay. How many different colors were there for that?
I only saw two. I don't think there were any other lenses. No red lenses that I recall.
Good question. I don't know.
I think
Something
so.
for you on the internet tonight.
Yeah.
Search that video.
Yeah, that's the only ones I remember was white and amber. There's Shawana.
I don't know how we got inside to take the picture, but
Shano. We had a lot of guys trying to picture of Shano. These were good pictures. Green Bay. There's a Wisconsin division, Green Bay division, and there was also the Ashland division. It was all Ringo. Ringo. Big wreck there one time when I was at it.
oh yeah.
Kelly? There's a little antique shop there. There's Nori. I was looking for that. Nori Lake. Used to fish on that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then there was Anawa. Reynolds Sugar Bush.
Sugar Bush, yeah.
Yep. We were there for pancakes.
Huh.
That time. I got a couple things there to show you guys. There's some of my depot products. Here was
This right here?
Yeah, they came out of the Warrens, Wisconsin depot.
Oh.
And
Huge pictures. That's great. If you see anything you want copies of here, just let me know.
What I need is copies of the Mondovi line. Nobody has pictures of that.
That's hard.
essentially.
no,
That's
including
hard.
me, I had some, but good lord over the years. Well, as far as you and I've been able to determine, am I the only living person that worked on the line, actually?
Oh no, I talked to many of them.
They just drive out, well, as a depot person, I mean. I don't know any of them.
The only other one, give me a second now. Rich Johnson.
He worked at Austin.
He worked at Osceola for quite a while.
Yeah.
He's down in Texas right now. He'll be coming back pretty soon.
I guess I figured he was at Augusta.
Jack Coon,
later years.
But he was only at Mondovi for
Yeah.
less than a year.
Right.
Lives at Bloomer now.
He used to be in a depot next to my dad's at Warren's.
Okay.
He went up there, he was at Bloomer, and he worked in Eau Claire. was like consolidated, and they had to go to both stations.
In fact, that breakfast is coming up Friday morning.
This Friday?
It's last Friday of the month, isn't it? Must be this Friday. It's gotta be, cause today's
I'll
the
probably
20.
go down to that.
You wanna ride down, I'll take you down. We'll see if we can pick up Jack.
Well, I kinda think Lori wants to go along and go to
Okay.
the antique place down there. We're looking for
Fine.
parts for our pocket doors. And we think we might have found some. We've been, now we've been looking for about 25 years.
And I probably told you, there's a guy in Cameron, what was his job? I haven't met him, but I talked on the
At
phone.
breakfast at 8, isn't it?
Yeah. Eldon Peterson? Pedersen? That's what I'm thinking. He just had heart surgery, but he wants to go down. He couldn't go last month, but I'm gonna call him and see if he wants to. Eston Pedersen.
Must have a supervisor.
No, he's Northwestern, but I think he was section,
Oh, okay.
I think.
There's a retired railroaders breakfast or something?
Yeah.
The last Friday of every month, they meet at the restaurant at the airport. Still at the airport.
Was it
Yeah.
Chippewa Falls? Clear?
Okay.
So a lot of the guys.
They do have in Spooner too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know they do it in Ashland too.
You know, I never been to it, but it's like on a Thursday, the fourth Thursday or something.
I gotta see Joe Smith. I'm gonna surprise him this year.
He worked at Marshfield, didn't he?
Oh, no, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a supervising agent there before I came there, because then he went to the union job.
Okay.
He was a negotiator. He was at Maryland for a long, long time. He was a daytime operator. Of course, Joe and I got to be good friends. And then he was appointed to Marshfield, and then I was appointed to Altoona, and then Joe left for the union job in Washington. He was part of the Railroad Advisory Board and the National Railroad Negotiation Board. And so then they appointed me to take his place over at Marshfield. Live transfer divisions. This is an express envelope. This was commonly referred to as a million-mile envelope. Which
Kept
was-
using it and
kept using it. And they had freight ones that were bigger yet. Those are fun. In fact, here is a letter written by Joe Smith.
What are the railroad telegraphers?
We can manage without damage, huh?
Yep.
We can, doesn't say we do, huh?
That's it.
Who's the man that they wanted to cut off?
They wanted to cut off my telegraph operator
Oh.
and sign me his work.
Oh, I think you told me about
This is, when I was a member, a benefit member of that. Zip code looked like that.
You don't have a date on that? You're a permanent member or something?
That would have been 53.
Yeah.
Here is this was the General Telegraph Office in St. Paul. I worked there quite a little. There's Laddie Bowen. Had a seniority date of 1900. But his higher out date was 1894.
Really?
Art Osborne, Harry Saline. Harry Saline got to be our
What year was this, Dick? 56.
56 too.
Okay, so that's 56, 6, so about 63, yeah, makes
Johnny
sense.
Morris.
Near retirement.
Indian Allison, Joe Tremont. And then we go down here to the Eastern Division. This was, after they consolidated the Omaha's, they used to, guys in Spooner and all that, used to be separate. That was a separate seniority district from the mainline guys. Like here you got P.G. Palmer at Spooner, 1902. Joe Gaffney at North Line, that's where the line from Spooner hit the twin track. 1906. P.S. Peterson, Rice Lake. Remember Pete? Used to have two depots there.
Well, there used to be a Sioux line and a.
Oh, two Northwestern, two Omaha depots. There's a freight depot up here by where Quick Trip is now.
Okay.
There's one there, and then the right passenger depot is still there.
Oh, really?
Klaus Jacobson, River Falls, Gus Norman, Louis Corcoran, Sully Myron, George Armstrong. Bill Witt was then the agent of Marshall in 1909.
Big Bill Witt.
Big Bill Witt.
That's what is that what they called him?
Yeah, he's a big guy.
No,
I relieved so many of these guys, like George Devine at Ellsworth, Bill Bornke, Menominee Junction, Herb Hall at Fall Creek, Ken Purvis at Chippewa, relieved him, Axel Nordholm, P.F. Heimstead, New Auburn, and his son was the agent in Hillsville, Lee Heimstead. George Schuler, he was the general chairman. Joe Smith, who wrote this letter, took his place. If you go to the back end, then you see my name. This is the Western Division here. There's a separate CNW.
that goes all the way out to Omaha.
Yep.
Well, even west of there.
Western Division, 4th and 5th Consolidated District. Warren Clark, you remember him? There I am. Number 149, R.E. Bathke, extra board, hired out December 1st, 1953. Here's Laddie Bones, Western Division, seniority date 1899.
Jeez. Some of the seniority rosters that I brought along there that Jerry had given me. I'll show
Yeah.
those to you. There's some old timers on there too.
Yeah, I remember when my dad started railroading in 1921 that there were 12-hour shifts. You worked 7 days a week. No such thing as vacation or sick leave.
Really?
12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And my dad's wages when he started in 21 were $35 a month.
Wow.
For a lot of hours, boy.
Well, that was probably good pay back then, though. Huh?
Yeah, never thought of it as,
Put food on the table, huh?
yeah, that's about it.
Boy, there's a real difference with the old typewriters. Just turning the computers now and turning out and stuff. You know, you make a mistake, you know, you just...
Those were old and Joe, I'm sure manual type.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. But Joe lives, I found out, was over around Frederick somewhere. And that he plays golf a certain day every week as a standing tee time. And so I'm going to go over and surprise him.
I bet he'd enjoy the heck out of that.
We used to tip a few beers after hours in.
Well, we got one more here if you want to take a look at it.
Did you know you knew Bill Cromroy?
Oh yeah.
Okay, now his brother was this G.F. Cromroy out of Jim Falls.
Yep.
And I think he had another brother too, his daughter said. I can't remember now, I got to look back at the letter. Maybe no, maybe not, maybe not. Read that quite a while ago.
Cromroy,
Yeah,
George Cromroy.
George, huh?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you look back at those names.
Yeah, we want to see that, definitely.
What's this one?
Now there's mainline stuff on here, and there's some Sioux Line stuff from Marshfield and some Green Bay Western stuff. And
Well, see, my wife's uncle was a Green Bay and what they lived in Marshfield in his last years.
okay,
Can't remember his real name. It was Bud Hancock, but I can't remember his real name. He hired out in the Green Bay Western in the 1880s.
oh really? Wow.
And Bud used to come down when I was in Marshfield, and he'd come down every morning for coffee. We'd sit and chat.
Willie Novak,
Yeah,
you know him?
yeah,
He's still living.
yeah. I haven't seen him
In Eau
for
Claire.
years and years.
His wife emailed me or sent me a couple pictures,
Oh,
and they weren't great. You know, all the old Kodak Instamatic, but a couple I can use, definitely.
yeah. Some of those I just got a computer from you. Weren't salvageable, just what was that really old one there?
Yeah, there were a couple of them that
Yeah.
had just come across that
Yeah.
I figured I'd forward on.
Sometimes you clean them up, but
Yeah.
couldn't clean them up, so I
Was that
deleted them.
pictures?
Yeah, they were. I don't even remember what they were.
Well, let's see what I got over here. I always I always archive them.
Oh, boy. Hey, you've been sitting a while too, haven't you?
Yeah, well, my back surgery about 10 years ago, so it's always gets pretty stiff. I heard that when they first came on the road, they were painted green, they called them green hornets.
Green with yellow trim.
You coming?
Ooh. Those are FM meters, weren't they? That's helpful.
Yeah, well, that's helpful.
That's right. I think it's at least oh, that hey, I think you need it. How's that look at? You know, if they're rough pictures, can you imagine back in those days with cameras they had and stuff? You know, what year roughly was that? 1910? 1908 or something? I don't know. Yeah, it's been all, I would say that was during construction of the bridge. Right? It's not
This
worse.
is the Black River Hat.
Sure, I didn't go through the whole list of people on there. You probably were posting on the project, right? Oh, yeah. I thought you had, you know, but a lot of my stuff was from before. You know, he was the baby of the family, and when they, you know, when his dad went someplace, he went with them. He,
Yeah.
I mean, he
Seems
knew
to
that
me there
railroad
was-
inside and out.
There was a Meacham Street in Marshfield.
Could be. These are all Maryland here. These are mainline trains.
Passenger cars, the express car, baggage car, whatever. I remember when we sat there.
And that was the way freight that used to run down out of Altoona.
Yep, the Scoot.
There's your
They
Green
used
Bay
to-
train.
Back in my dad's days, it was called 21 and 22.
Hmm.
That was the number of the way freight. And they always had a caboose right behind the engine. That's where the front crew.
Hmm.
So the man had-
Now, I never heard that word scoot, and then I looking through an old Northwestern historical thing, and they talked about the scoot after you mentioned that.
Yeah.
But the way, I can't remember now. The scoot went from Marshfield to Mondovi. It wasn't,
Yep.
but it wasn't. So if they're going Altoona to Mondovi, that would not have been known as a scoot necessarily then.
No. The original Scoot ran from Mondovi to Marshfield. Let's see what we got here.
Oh, wow. Some old newspapers.
1915.
Oh, jeez.
There, Mr. Flynn, James Flynn, was an engineer on the railroad. Mr. Flynn was one of the pioneer railroad men of the country and was the oldest engineer in the Northwestern in point of years of service. He was born in Massachusetts in 1841. Came with his parents to Janesville when he was a small boy at the age of 18 years. He started his career as a locomotive engineer. During his service as an engineer, he underwent a very experienced he was an engineer on the Burlington at the time of the Great Strike and often told of his experiences. In 1861, he drew the first train on the Santa Fe over the Rocky Mountains.
Wow.
On this trip, working for 114 continuous hours. In the Civil War, he was an engineer on a troop train that drew the soldiers from place to place. During his years as an engineer, he worked in Santa Fe, the Burlington, the Northwestern, and the Omaha. The latter rode since 1882 on the Omaha. He served 54 years of continuous service as a locomotive engineer and was one of the first engineers to draw trains on the branch through Neillsville. Maryland is mentioned in there.
It's
He then
1950.
served many years on the run between Altoona and Marshfield on the Midnight Faster train. He retired from active life 3 years ago and took up his residence in Maryland.
Okay, he was born 1841, so
Married at
59, 74 years old.
The oldest roster I've got here is 1960, so.
And I knew the Flint family.
Oh, yeah?
And his life crushed out by a lot
Yeah.
of
Well, 1915,
That would be.
prominent attorney when car turned turtle. Wow.
You must have flipped on him,
You
huh?
know what
Flipped on
turtle is? Yeah.
Upside down.
rolled over.
This must have been all handset, too.
Oh, I'm sure it
Oh,
was.
yeah.
Boy, oh, boy.
There's some other, look at there. There's an Overland for $750.
They were hand setting in the 60s. I remember I taught in Fenimore, and a friend of mine ran a place there and went in there and
You talking about the Rothies?
yeah, Charlie.
Charlie Rothy.
I didn't even know Neillsville had a brewery.
No, the Neillsville Brewery. Montgomery Hospital in Eau Claire.
Where did you
Now,
ever come across
could-
this? Oh, go ahead with
I
your
have
story.
lots of kind of stuff like this.
What?
Say,
You say,
could
but
you get away with this today?
Oh,
Oh
wow.
wow.
No. But you know what's interesting? My
I
future
remember that.
mother-in-law has a cannabis or a box, but she has that in her house.
You know, and then you had a competing brand called Gold Dollar, and every once in a while there was a $1 gold piece
Oh, really?
in the package. Look for it as a premium. Nigger here. I remember my uncle selling that in the store. Nobody thought anything of it. Nigger for vodka. Oh Lord, now you can't even think it.
Well, even when I was growing up, we didn't have, I mean, everybody was white.
Right,
Everybody was
right.
white.
Yeah, even the black. Oh, white.
Black people was something you saw on TV.
Yeah. Now you see him playing football and basketball.
Through automobile routes in the state. Wow, and they list the route, the green trails. St. Paul, Superior, via Hudson, they go Clear Lake, Turtle Lake, Cumberland, Shell Lake, Spooner, Gordon, Solon Springs, and Hawthorne. That goes up to Superior. Wow, I just saw Bear in here. That's a yellow circle route. Prentice, that's Highway 8 then, okay, Antigo,
Yeah.
Rhinelander, Prentice, and so on. Wonder what the roads were like in those
Here's
days.
the Maxwell.
Boy, even though, I mean, back then, $655 was a lot of
Yeah, it
money.
had to be a lot of money, didn't it?
Well, my son I talked to him just before you guys drove in. In fact, I was on the phone with you guys. Laura said there's somebody at the front door, and I just sent Mike a package, he got it yesterday. One thing I sent him was a coach lamp off of a 1905 catalog. That I had found in a box in the attic. And it had always ruby red to the rear. And these were things like this size. Brass, and it had it had a burner in it. And you could, that went to the front. And it had a bracket that it fit in. But it was from a 1905 catalog. Mike likes this car stuff. He races factory Yamaha. He's a doctor also. He races family Yamaha for factory. And there's other stuff.
Dick's in the antique, so I'm sure you got these at an antique store sometime. Huh?
No, this come from the Bailey estate in Benjamin.
Did Neil sold Times in the Bailey estate?
Oh, right
There's
there.
look at that.
Ah,
Wow.
Abner. That's Abner when he passed away. 22. See, I just shipped my son Glenn the complete World War I uniform that Byron Bailey, his son, and I have that newspaper article over there somewhere. I had the whole uniform. The overcoat, even the neck straps,
Really?
leggings, shipped it all. I was going to sell it at auction. I had some good offers out of it. Rich says, gee, kind of like this. Just go look at it.
I was going to say, some of that stuff, especially like that Cadillac light, I put that on eBay. Ooh. I can just imagine.
Yeah, but you know what you find out about eBay? Junk sells good. Good stuff don't sell for shit.
Oh, really?
Oh, I had, in fact, I got it right over there, a gold pocket watch, and I put a reserve on it of 200. And I knew how old it was. I knew it was well over 100 years. Some of the stuff I got good prices on. I had Civil War stuff. I had belt buckles and they fought over those. But I thought most of the time we're just well off by the time we get done farting around with eBay and selling it at a local auction. We had an auction a week ago Saturday when it was free. Took bids for $7, never got done.
Wow.
Stuff we're cleaning out of the attic.
Oh, my God.
Downsizing. I had one marble shooter sold for $340.
Jesus.
And the second one for $160, so it was $500 for 2 marbles.
Really? That's unbelievable. How do you even date something like
I
that?
agree. You don't. They just know what they are. They're called German swirl.
Okay.
So now you know what they all are.
Huh.
Recognize any of those names there? See,
There's a baseball.
I lived in Fenimore too.
Oh, okay.
Arlyn and I were there together.
Oh, this is Livingston. Okay. Livingston, Lancaster.
So you and Arlyn have known each other for quite a while, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you had just met recently.
No. No. It's been 40 years, ain't it, Arlyn?
I was down there from 66 till 70.
Yeah.
So.
What did you do there?
I was a high school teacher.
Oh, okay.
Not very far from my house, was it?
No.
3 houses?
Yeah.
Yeah, he coached some of my boys. I was looking for another newspaper that I sent Rich one of them here.
Wow. This is just... The older I get, the more I like history. You know, it's really got a point. I'm not sure, like Western civilization and all that stuff. It'd be interesting, but local stuff is what I really,
Right.
you know,
The stuff that other people don't really seem to want to preserve.
Yeah, here's that. Well, that's the same paper. Oh, because it's from the Bailey. That's why.
Okay.
Here's Mark. This is Fenimore. This is the Capital Times.
Yeah.
April 17th, 1965. Then I had the Baileys that saved him, so I sent Rich the whole newspaper because he now has Mark Bailey's World War I uniform. Lori comes from a famous Civil War family, the Hancocks. Her great-great-grandfather was commander of the Wisconsin forces in the Civil War, and her great-great-uncle was the commander at Gettysburg, Colonel General Scott Winfield Hancock.
Wow.
So we donated a lot of that stuff to the museum. And that's right, we really should go on. What else did we, that same day. Banner Journal,
Black River?
1974. Something there. 74. I had newspapers I sold at the auction in little stacks. I had them back as far as 1871. I think that was the oldest newspaper I had.
Spent more time since 70, right after I left.
Right. Hell, they might have had your leaving in there as
You
a
know,
civic
no.
improvement.
Oh, right, yeah, right. It's December, so I've been gone a few months.
There's a Marshfield Journal.
The Marsh? Oh, there. You got two of them there.
Marshfield News.
Okay.
This Milwaukee Journal. Well, that was when Kennedy was shot. 1963, November 25th.
I've got, I don't know.
13 deer hunters died.
Oh, jeez. I've got several issues of the Marshfield News Herald from late 60s, early 70s, whenever they had their centennial. They had all the historical stuff.
Center football. These, I think, are all historical. Now, there's November 26th. This all has to do with Kennedy's assassination. Here's the Wausau Daily Record. Same thing.
Now, when did you leave Marshfield?
Oh, 65.
I bet you would have known my triplet aunts. They made the newspaper when they were born in Marshfield.
Triplet?
Yeah, the Backus triplets. Arlyn Backus was my grandpa. But I've got all kinds of old newspaper clippings from when they were born.
Here's Marshfield Assassin Stories. Yeah, I tend to save a lot of stuff, and now we're making. Here's a 61 U.S. space flight.
Yeah, we saved all that stuff. Now you're finding out it's awful valuable.
Yeah, it gets there. What do we got here? There's a Life magazine from 63. Not in such good shape. But you know what people collect this stuff for? The ads.
Oh.
Especially car ads. They use those, and I got a box full of sheet music dating back to 1909. This is original stuff from my Lori's great-great-aunt's estate.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful stuff.
Really?
Put it on eBay, couldn't even get a bid. I may not have had it listed, in the proper
Yeah. Something to catch
category.
somebody. Yeah.
But it's, you know what? Who's using that stuff is interior decorators. If you're decorating a theme room, they put it in frames. You get huge money for it. First, you get like $800-900 a frame
Really?
for people in New York that are decorating in a theme like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
well, I would say so. Yeah. This old stuff sometimes you just sit and look. I got really such a big part of it, but there is railroad stuff again. I got my dad's ticket daters and all that stuff yet. Here is some items here. This is a telegraph student practice set.
A practice set? I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah. Put a battery up to that 6-hole drive battery. Here's one that I've had for many years. It's my pride and joy. This is German nickel silver, and you'll see the install date on the back of it.
8 of 77.
August 8th of 1877.
I was gonna say, it couldn't have been 1977.
They always stamped them when they installed it.
Hmm.
And you know what this is? The old railroad gummed envelopes. Put water in the bottom here, and then twirl this around. This got damp,
Okay.
and then you ran your envelope over that.
Oh, really? Boy, oh boy. I take it you've seen this already, did? Ah. Arlyn?
I was here a couple months ago. He was showing me a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. South Bend Bake Company. Yeah, this is, I use that as a wall hanger. Gotta get back into one of my other hobbies too. This is a spindle, one of my dad's people.
Oh,
That's where he kept his train orders at. I also have, see it hanging on the wall, metal detector,
oh yeah.
$1,000 worth of equipment.
Oh, I'm sure. I am sure.
I had some more little stuff. I probably got a little bit of put away here and there. And we're trying to get a handle on everything and downsizing so someday we don't stick the kids with it. See the newest thing, the flashlights? Grab that one behind you, Ken.
Is this one of the shakers?
Oh, turn it on.
Oh, with the LEDs.
LEDs.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've got for deer
Doing
hunting
all-
as well.
Redoing all of my boat lights and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Completely waterproof, you know.
These are Bob's here.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of time. I was working year round, and I didn't have a camera, and I like trains, but I really wasn't into it. Gee, I should have been taking pictures, you know.
Oh, yeah, there's lots of opportunities, a lot of photo ops.
You know. So now you take a bunch, but everything's so generic compared to what it was
Oh,
before.
No kidding.
The old engineers, I can remember them standing there, they listen to the steam whistle and they could tell you who in the hell was running it, and they could tell you what the engine number was.
Really?
Oh, no doubt in their mind. Every steam whistle had its only character. They knew by the pitch what engine it was on. Yeah, I used to sit there at Hudson. That's a big open river valley. Have you been there?
Mm-hmm. No, I don't. I've seen lots of pictures of Hudson.
Yeah.
In fact, I was going to send you one of a train coming right across the bridge there.
Yep, the old drawbridge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used to go out there and fish walleyes in there.
Really?
I got done with my shift. I go to draw. The drawman and I were good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh,
Really?
huge things. We dropped down on the crib, went down on the crib, and fished right out. Nobody else could get there
Oh, I'm sure.
because they wouldn't allow you out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we did a lot of that, and then we would send the helper engine over across into Lakeland Junction, was called, a little stub that went in.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the trains would come from St. Paul down across the drawbridge, they come up by the depot and go like hell as far as they could go till they started to slip, because it's uphill all the way to Baldwin
Mm-hmm.
out of there. And so they would stop, and they'd wait for the helper engine to get out behind them, and he'd hook on, and then to sit there and listen to it was a lifetime experience, communicating by whistle.
Oh, by whistle.
There were no radios then, from the hind end to the front end and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there were so many different whistle signals, of course they all knew what they were.
Mm-hmm.
But I could hear the steam engine real good because he was right straight across from me. And on these still, quiet summer nights, you know, and I would just echo it down that valley.
Oh,
You'd hear that steam engine over there give two long, shrill, that was the highball signal on that. And then you listen, so you hear the diesel, and you hear it start picking up slack. The bank and
Huh.
he started pushing out the slack. And then when they got the slack pushed out, then they communicated again to let the throttle go
Mm-hmm.
and take off all the air.
Hmm.
And then they really pour the coals. But man, you could, those crack, those little
Steam exhaust?
steam exhausts would come. You don't want to be standing by the track when they come by, I'll tell you that, knock you over.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, you bet that steam come out of there hot, live, and with a lot of force.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a burst of hot water.
Hmm.
And a lot of times if I was done with my shift, I'd go and help them. On help them. I'd
Oh, really?
that up, and then they'd let me run it on the way back. But I wouldn't let me run it behind the train. There were just certain things you had to do and know, and it was an experience thing.
Mm-hmm.
But well, I tell you, they used to laugh at me, the firemen. I tell you, you had to really burn the coal to. When you were pushing the big long drag up there, you used a lot of fire, a lot of coal. And you know, they had these tinder boxes, and they flew open like this.
Mm-hmm.
But to get them to fly open, when you made your move to throw the coal in there, there was a pedal you stepped on that opened those doors. Well, sometimes you missed the pedal with your foot, and you threw coal all over the engineer's cab. He didn't like that.
I imagine not.
You know?
Huh.
I remember a guy at Marshfield who had Casimir Talarczyk was his name. And he was an engineer out of the Elam division over there. And Kaz had the delightful habit of snorting wet Copenhagen.
I think you told me about that.
And he would
Oh.
stuff it up his nose. And he went through 2 packs of Copenhagen a day, mind you. Stuff it up his nose. And when he'd go, and when he looked like he was going to let go of sneeze, everybody ran and ducked. And we called his compartment on the engine the Great Speckled Bird.
Mm-hmm.
It was tobacco juice all over, just from one trip. And nobody would clean it. Kaz had to go and clean his own cab when he got back over to Elam.
Sure.
And that's what he spent some time doing after every trip.
Now, didn't you tell me he'd come at night, he'd put a can of that on?
Oh, that was Ray Thebe.
Oh, Ray Thebe.
Ray Thebe was my yard clerk over there. The last thing he did before he went home is he went over and bought Copenhagen. And with the precision of a surgeon, he'd take that off of there, and he would tap it down, and he'd pull it, he'd fill it full of brandy to as much as it would hold, and he'd put that top on carefully. And then he would
Marinated it.
He would set it on top of the steam radiator.
Oh, God.
One morning, it was ugly. It had a life of its own.
That's when men were men, they could just stand something like that, huh?
And that was an everyday occurrence with
Jeez.
Ray. God, he lived to be in his 80s.
Really?
But man, I tell you.
How, you know,
I,
yeah, these some tough guys, the body put up
man,
with that.
I tell you, you could smell that halfway through Marshall, and he opened up that Copenhagen in the morning. Man, I tell you, it was waiting to get out. But man, he just delighted in that. We had some real characters over there. And then one time for my birthday, I bought a whole new coffee setup for the crew, for the switch crew and the office crew. No, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us in the office, and 5 in the switch crew. And so we had this great big, right below the ticket window, we had this, God, that drawer was like about this long, about that deep, a real deep one. And everybody had their turn. We made a list. And whoever turn it was went over to Washington Square Market, a nice bakery in there, and they got the bakery stuff for the day, whatever mixture they wanted, was always their choice. And meanwhile, I made the coffee. Out there, we had a great big 35-cup coffee maker. And people stopped in from all over town. Lori's uncle, he stopped in and had coffee all the time, and the retired guy did. We played a lot of cribbage. There was a lot of late mail on the postal routes, carrier routes in Marshfield, because the guy that he and I always played 3 games of cribbage every day when we came in for coffee. And sometimes they get to be kind of long games,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
And so the mail just sat there in the bag. It didn't go in. Oh, we played a lot of cribbage in Marshfield. Gosh, seriously. And we had the track patrolman. His name was Clarence Brathall out of Altoona. And he made a turn. He'd come down, track inspector. He'd come on his putt-putt car. He'd come down one day and go back the next. Come down one day and back the next. He made 2 round trips a week down there inspecting track. Gosh, sometimes he and I would sit there for 2 and 3 hours and more sometimes playing cribbage after hours. And we had a little train room there on the deep rail with the bars on it. You could have access from the outside. And that's when we used to run a train out of Marshfield to go to Wisconsin Rapids too.
Right.
Yeah. that's where they registered there. Before I went home, I had everything set for them, all of their waybills and where the train was. And, then they had there was no other trains on the schedule at that time. And then I have all of their train orders. If there were slow orders to go slow, I'd make those up the night before, because they were out at like 4 a.m. or something like that. So I'd have those all made up, and it was like a ticket window, a little opening down here, and then you have the big train register that looks like this, where they registered the trains in and out with what they had, and what time they tied up, and all this and all that. So I put that all under there, and it looked just like clockwork. It was the problem was then is that the railroad men were forced to quit running the railroad, and the damn bean counters took over. That was the end of the railroad. It had to be just a matter of bottom line. The romance was gone. For me, the romance of railroading left with the steam engine.
Yeah.
Because when I started back in '53, the only diesels were on 400 and 401. And they were, you know the 400 guy's name?
400 miles and 400 minutes.
There you go. That's how it was advertised. And I still have some notebook paper with Chicago Northwestern Railroad route of the streamliners. I actually rode the last trip.
Oh yeah?
Or you know, talking about that last night. I went to Maryland and got on 401 and rode it into the cities. That was the last trip going that way, and then I stayed overnight in St. Paul and got the 400 out the next day, and they stopped in Maryland with me out. So that was in June 11th, 1962, I believe. Was it around 62 or 60?
I don't know.
I had it wrote down somewhere. I think 62.
I was going to say 65, but it might have been earlier than that, huh?
I think 62. June 11th was the day.
I've got a picture at home of it, of that train when it came back, as Bob Giles.
Oh.
Was
Yeah,
his
there were a lot
grandma?
of people out
Somebody
there
took him to
taking
the depot.
pictures, yeah. So I actually wrote it. And they served free champagne. I knew that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I suppose they had to get rid of it, so.
Yeah.
But you know, if you're collecting stuff today, if you collect dinnerware
Oh, yeah.
with the railroad, I
Yeah.
just sold, well, it was railroad, I just sold a real nice set of the Demetas coffee cups, Transworld Arrow. That's a nice set of photos, perfect condition. And I do have some other stuff, railroad stuff saved. I just picked up, it had me in one of the boxes, and I noticed it before I took it up there. I just took a glance at it. There's a CNSTPMP on the handle. It's a triple plate silver dining spoon from Milwaukee Road. So
How did you get something like that?
I shucked that out.
I got a buddy, we went to a train show in the cities here a month and a half ago, and he's a big Pensy fan, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
The guy had a napkin holder. He
That's
spent
good.
paid $300 for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, if I came home and told my wife I spent $300 for a napkin holder, what are you gonna do with it? I don't know. You know,
Set it there. Someplace.
set it there someplace.
But that stuff looks big.
Yeah, there is.
Anything new, you know, like my telegraph stuff. I don't know what that lantern would bring, but it's the only one I ever seen. It's got to be so damn rare.
Well, I'm sure it would
Yeah.
bring a pretty penny. I know that a guy who just recently, within the past year, tried selling me a lantern that didn't have the road name on the globe or anything.
And you don't even want it, because it will never go up in value.
But he was trying to get $75 out of it from me. I was like, well, I mean, if something like that really doesn't hold my, it doesn't have any value to me. If you said, well,
Right.
you know what, I took this out of the Marshfield Depot in '72,
Right.
then it would.
Right.
But
Gotcha.
I just sold a porcelain spittoon
oh,
that I personally picked up in the Superior, Wisconsin. Actually, it was the Superior Depot, Superior East End Depot, but,
It's the antique shop now.
huh?
The antique shop now?
I don't know, it was sold at my auction. cause I picked it up there many, well, I was still single, so it's been 50 years ago.
Oh,
I
yeah.
picked it up, and they used to have train dispatchers up at Eloise at Superior East End.
Mm-hmm.
And they had train dispatchers up there way back when, and I was all boarded over, and so me and one of my buddies went there, and I talked to the guy who was kind of in charge of it with the car crew. I said, well, I'm gonna find some way to get back into the dispatcher's quarters up there. He said, yeah, go ahead. So I got in there. And that thing was set there. He says, hell, take it with you. Been anybody in that room back there for Christ's sakes for 70 years.
They just be junk when they
Yeah,
clean
sure.
it out and go.
Yeah, that's just junk they threw away.
Sure.
So I don't know, I'd have to go back and see what it was. That's nothing, but I had a lot of antique musketeers in the 20s and 30s.
I've got a Santa Fe spittoon.
Yeah.
Santa Fe spittoon and
You gotta have
railroad
it identified.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have
Yeah.
a name on them,
Yeah, even if they were the railroad, it doesn't mean a whole lot to
you
anybody.
can't prove that they are.
You can't prove they are straight.
Another thing I told Rich this morning, I said I saw this hatchet, and I had it in the box where to take the auction. I said, oh, something put it on the back of it. CNW railroad.
On a hatchet?
Yep.
Oh boy.
And a very nice one, kind of the arrowhead
Mhm.
type, you know, with the diamond in the back.
Sure.
That went out to Rich in the box. I didn't think anybody at the auction
No.
would appreciate it.
No.
So, the railroad stuff I tend not to. I think as long as my son Rich is interested in that stuff.
Right.
My grandson has got all of the HO stuff I had, all the end gauge, and it's all integrated with a road race set.
Oh, yeah.
Covered 4x8 sheets.
Hmm.
So we're pretty excited. We got all of that. He loves it. And his mother works with him. She does all the designing of all the scenery and all
Right.
that stuff.
Good.
He covers half of their basement.
Good.
So they're both very, very interested in
And
that.
it'll mean something to him too.
Where was this taken?
That? That's Spencer.
Spencer. Huh? I think I ran that engine.
Really?
That was where Ed Dickman lived. He started the mobile home industry pretty much around that area.
Really?
Yep. Where you see it, Thomas?
Spencer.
Spencer.
yeah.
Just north of Marshfield.
That actually, Rolla Home was the first into mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
And Ed Dickman, who I used to bowl with in Marshfield, he started, was actually the first name was Dickman Homes. He had worked for Rolla Home and designed his own. I believe it was Spencer Homes. Then later. Yeah. Ed Dickman.
Yeah, I think they had a place up there.
Yeah. Oh, that's... Railroading was fun. I used to really enjoy going over.
That's worth something.
Are you member of the Northwestern Historical Society?
Yeah.
I knew you had to be, but it's just,
I let it lapse here. I've got to get it back in here because I want to submit a couple articles. But yeah, I've been a member pretty much. I think when did I was still in high school, so like
do
'87.
you know Joel Fulmer?
I've never met the man. I've communicated with him
Joe
through
who?
email.
Fulmer. Not a Fulmer, this is Follmer. He has written books and articles on Northwestern and Omaha.
Yeah.
He's pretty, well, he's a Catholic priest.
Right. Doesn't he live out in Loyal or someplace?
Greenwood, I think.
Yeah.
And I had his address. I wrote to him. He didn't respond back, but I was hoping he had something for my book, you know. And I guess he's not in real good shape, you know, a little older and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who started the Omaha Railroad?
Your great-great-great-grandpappy.
Humbert family. They're very wealthy people out of the Twin Cities.
Oh.
They actually started the first Omaha Railroad. It's a Humbert family.
Well, was that originally the West Wisconsin back then, or was that the start of the Omaha?
Started in Omaha. Started that back in the 1800s. I don't know the exact date or anything. I remember the shops in Hudson very well, the Hudson repair shops.
If it wasn't so far, we had time to go over there. I've only been down by there once. A lot of the buildings are still standing. Of course,
Really?
the track and stuff.
Yeah, because they make, they store refrigerator. Whirlpool Corporation owns the building,
Do they?
and they store and assemble washers and dryers. But I remember H.B. Christopherson was the shop superintendent of Hudson Repair Shops in the area. He used to stop down April every night. Grand old man. And we talked about, gosh, he used to, that's where all the heavy repairs, locomotive too, took place. And if you ever get, have you been to Energy Park?
Energy Park Drive or the Bandana Square?
Bandana Square.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
I was telling Rich, you need to go there.
Where is this?
St. Paul.
Okay.
Bandana Square has, I think, the finest, the old Museum of Science and Industry's got a pretty nice setup too in Chicago.
Yeah.
But the model train setup is just fantastic.
I think it's still open. They're trying to kick them out, you know, and they charge us so much. It's an old scale. It's been going for
Yeah.
years and years. They started down in the
St.
old
Paul
Union
Depot,
Depot,
yeah.
and they moved there.
Because I dispatched right across the street. It's 475 East 4th Street. That's where our dispatcher offices were.
So,
Every lunch
it's the
hour
old
there.
shops up there and stuff,
Yeah.
and the rent's so high and stuff they can't make it. The bookshop in there closed,
Oh, did.
you know, or
Because
moved or whatever.
we like to go there to eat. They were a pretty good malt shop and a hamburger shop downtown.
You know all the good eating places. I gotta go with you.
On the way home in Bloomer, you stop at the Main Street Cafe.
Yeah,
Oh, it's hard to beat that.
trying to beat that. Of course, the other,
Rose's Meat Mart, Reeds and Bowes, we stop there all the time. That's been there for 130 years, I think. That's what they are. Reeds and Bowes.
you know
Arlen
Joe
and I will be
Pearson?
going on Saturday.
Yeah, same thing with him. I've communicated with him, but I've
He
never.
lives down in Chicago or something. I communicated quite a bit with him, but he's the guy that's really archiving a lot of their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
And he's just overwhelmed with the amount of stuff, you know.
Now, did either of you ever get in contact with Jerry Hagan's wife? Right? Because I know that he.
Eugene.
Yeah, because she had an archive of railroad stuff, or he did. He,
I helped Jerry with his model
Yeah.
train. It was an exact duplicate of the Altoona yard. That's how we built it.
Doesn't she live in Black River now?
Well, that's his sister.
That's his sister.
She lives in Merrill. Jean Anderson. This is Jean Hagan. She was originally a Henning. I used to date her when she was a Henning.
oh yeah.
Before Jerry married her. First, we never knew Jerry as Jerry Hagan. It was Boney.
Oh really?
Boney Hagan. That was his name at our high school.
So you talking about his sister, you just say, or
His wife.
His wife.
His
She lives in Altoona yet?
She
I'm sure she does, because her
Bob could tell you for sure.
Ray Henning, her brother, and I used to chum around together. We were young and full of vim and vinegar.
Her dad was an engineer too, wasn't it? Or was it
Yep.
Art?
It was Ray Henning. It was Art Henning.
Okay.
And then it was Ferd. And it was Ray.
Wasn't there a Jerry Henning too? There was another Henning that just retired.
GW.
Another Henning that just retired in like 1997, retired off the railroad.
Yeah,
He was the
probably.
last Henning.
Yeah.
He wasn't real responsive.
There was three of the brothers that were Art, Ferd, and Ray were all engineers.
Okay.
Their brothers were within a total of 4 years of each other.
Okay.
And Ray Henning was Ray Henning Jr.'s dad, and he was also the father of Jean Hagan, who was Jean Henning. And her mother was the postmaster in Altoona for many, many years. And then Ray Henning got pretty active politically and worked with the party in state of Wisconsin.
Speaking of older people, since I started last fall trying to research this, the last engineer and the last conductor on the last Mondovi train have died,
Oh really?
and I didn't get to meet either one of them.
Oh shoot.
But neither one would have been really good.
What's the name?
Kovar.
Pete Kovar.
Pete Kovar was the last conductor,
Knew him well.
and the last engineer just died, and I've been working with him for a few weeks now. And he was an alcoholic. He spent all his time in the bar down in Altoona now. I think for a second here now.
George Nelson.
No. But none of them were any, they wouldn't have any material, and even talking to them, it was a job, it wouldn't have been anything,
It
you
wasn't a big interest to him.
What-
No,
Yeah.
they just working for a
Ernie,
paycheck.
no. That'll come to me.
Mess? EIMS? He was a railroad guy on that part of the road.
I can remember reflecting back when I was a supervising agent in Altoona, we had 440 some guys on the board.
Wow.
It was a damn busy place. But Bob Shower, who you know, comes to the breakfast. Bobby Shower? Sure, you met him last time you were there when I went.
There's a lot of people I met that I didn't know they'd have their name tags.
Well, they should have
But
named it.
they should, you know, I started.
Bobby Shower was the chief cook, but he was one of the yard cooks when I was the agent there. Well, he had this little room outside my office that had these mail pigeonholes in it. Well, all the paychecks, imagine for a crew that big, all the paychecks came in on train 501. That came from Elroy. That way, and all the paychecks came out of Chicago. For some reason, even though they Omaha was based out of Minneapolis. Well, they came in messenger service and I had to sign for them. There were big stacks of them like this, you know, they were alphabetical back then. We had to lock ourselves in the room, but we forgot to lock the windows. There was women pounding on the windows, trying to open the windows. Have you done my husband's check-in? I gotta have groceries. You know, we finally had to black out the windows
Really?
too. They would be pounding on the door. You couldn't, until you got done, you just couldn't. And then the girlfriends would want their boyfriend's check, and I just put my foot down. I said, unless you are on record here that your boyfriend has signed that it's okay for you to get his paycheck, you ain't getting it.
Right.
Because boy, do we get in arguments.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, I didn't want no part of that, so I put the rule down. I said, hey, the guy says, hey, just give my girlfriend my check. She's coming in to get it today. I said, here's a form. You sign it. That relieves me of the responsibility of you saying that they didn't have any right to the paycheck.
Right.
Now, how they endorsed it, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm sure they just signed it.
Back in those days, it didn't make
I
any
guess not.
But my God, I can remember them pounding on the door. Drive you nuts.
Jeez.
With, you know, a lot of guys that weren't even on our payroll that would have them sent there, you know, for relatives to pick up, you know, guys that hardly ever got back. They were maybe, they might have been in, you know what chain gang is? They would be in chain gang out of the Twin Cities. Well, they never got to Altoona, but their paycheck always came there. Because when they did have a day off, you know, that's where they came home to. So they'd stop, some guys, my God, I'd look at, they have a stack of paychecks like this for one guy. You know, because he was out on,
Yeah.
maybe hired out, or farmed out on the Western Division. Hell, he would get home maybe once every 3 months.
Wow.
And no family or whatever, so we kept his paychecks right there, and I had to have them under lock and key. Nobody, there was 2 keys to that room. I had one and Bobby Shower had one. That was it. And, I remember Lori and I were talking about this last night and laughing. You know, there was always something going on in the railroad. Well, when we heard the bridge signal ding, 400 was coming. They stopped at Eau Claire, and when they got right past Eau Claire Tower, they would hit the bridge approach, ding, and you couldn't get a signal going the other way.
How did they do
Single
that?
track. First one hit the electronic circuit,
Oh, okay.
got the signal.
Okay.
And at that time of the day, nobody tangled with the 400. Everybody was zoom zoom. So we would be ready for the 400. When he went by the Altoona Depot, he was moving.
Oh, yeah.
And we'd always pick on some new guy, operator or whatever. He'd be standing there, and I'd look up and say, "Oh my God, the coach track switch is lined the wrong way." Give him a heart attack.
Yeah.
Everybody would laugh and laugh because he'd jump up out and go over there to look.
It'd be too late by the time you got there anyway.
Man, I should say so. Then Hank Olson, first trick operator, always had the one that looked out the window. I said, Hank, anybody get off? He said, just that old lady with a basket of eggs. Going about 70 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
right. A quick jump, huh?
But I remember we used to have Jack McNabb and Art Erickson. Never drew a sober breath. But we called that train the hospital run. It started at Altona. Train number 528. Once in a while they even had a passenger. But all they usually did was transfer power and express down to the connection at Elroy. So the only stop they had was Maryland. So they always made them up in the courtyard just south of Depot at Altona. And that went out like 11 o'clock at night. Stopped in Maryland about 1:30 in the morning. They'd always come in and chit-chat, nothing to do. And well, better get on your way. So they hop on and they go down there, and they came back as 529, but they had a lot of mail coming back. It was a mail connection thing, and they had the ones that they'd set out for 108 or 109 going to Marshfield and stuff like that, you know. And, gosh, that, there was really nothing for crew to do on that train, but they had to wear their passenger uniforms, black uniforms with the black hats and all this, and I can remember old Jack McNabb, how many times he fell off the top step. You look out, are we there yet? Blank, right onto the cinders.
Oh no.
Art would pick him up and say, Jack, we haven't left yet. Oh, wow, let's get on the way then. And they would both sleep till they got to Maryland. And then they'd sleep till they got to Elroy.
Boy, oh boy, to get a job like that. No.
Yeah.
And they were, you know, they were way up. Top seniority guys got those jobs. There, you know, you were only gone total of what, 5 hours from home? And you know, you got a full day, and you got that at the passenger rate too, you know.
And you didn't do a dang thing. You
Didn't
could
do
sit there in a
anything.
drunken stupor, huh?
But once in a while, I'm shocked the hell I'd be a passenger. Ooh, we got a passenger. And that ran that way for years. Just it was subsidized by a mail contract and an express contract. That's all they existed for.
They must have made some money off of it.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have it done there. But gosh, you think about some of the things that I remember on New Year's Eve.
I can tell that look.
In fact, the yard manager just died 2 weeks ago. His name was DeLoss. Oh, well, he was one of the yard masters, midnight yard master. Boy, that night I kept my nose clean. Man, I tell you, everybody was over across the Railhaven, Golden Spike, and what a drunken mess. Well, and all the trains that came in just sat. No switching, no nothing.
Really?
And, well, I just sat there and said, well, it ain't me. I'm just doing my job here. But, some of the guys were coming on. We'd have to call the crew. Well, the crews are over there, too. And nobody showed up to go to work. And so the dispatcher would call me and say, well, what time is 479 ordered? I'd say, they're not ordered yet. Oh, well, let me know when they are. So about 2 hours later, I'd call and say, 479 ready to go? Hasn't been ordered yet. What the hell do you mean hasn't been ordered? I said, I haven't seen a person willing or ready or able to go to work, guys. Well, what the hell is going on? Well, so they called, in the book over there, J.L. Walton was his name. And he was a stern SOB. He was a superintendent of this whole division. they called J.L. like about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. That's not a good time to call Joe Wall. Holy Christ, first thing I know, I'm sitting there in walks Joe Wall. What the living hell is going on out here? Dick, where's everybody? I said, I think across the street. So he went across the street. It took him long to get back. He said, hell, there ain't nobody over there shaped to run the train. And we had a whole row of safety certificates, all in glass frames, that's been awarded for safety in the Altoona yard. He took down everyone and smashed them all over the office floor. Every single one of them. Threw them down. Safety, my ass. Boom, boom, boom. All the way around. I sat there very quietly, never said a word.
Wow.
There wasn't a thing moved. For my 8-hour trip, wasn't a person showed up. Boy, the next day there was nuts. There was a lot of brownie points and a lot of suspensions.
Wow.
The next day, and I was called as a witness. Geez, I was over in Joe Walton's office every day for,
Wow.
I don't know how long.
Did you suffer any wrath from the guys because of it or not?
I just, we had a hallway outside of there, and of course the guys were trying to tell me what to say. I said, guys, all I'm going to tell you is what I know to be true. That's all I'm going to do. My nose will be kept clean. I can't afford a suspension for lying. So I'll tell you right now, I ain't lying. And if you go in there and lie, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble anyway. Come on. Pretty good. I remember I was working at Eau Claire Tower. You have all the track things up there you want. They're used to a more experienced guy because I didn't work very much at Eau Claire Tower. I was just there, taking over for a guy that maybe was sick, couldn't work or whatever. So you had to toggle these buttons for the switch engine to go in and out of Gillette's, whatever. Well, they were, if you were there, well, you just flip this button. You wouldn't have to put all these big levers back, like I was doing. Say, okay, now I got to start that in. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do that. I was doing that one night. And I heard about the second one, clunk. I heard something hit the tower. A switch engine.
What?
Switch engine. I derailed him. And Eddie Bredesen was the engineer, come flying up the stairs. God damn, are you threw the derail under us? I said, you can't do that, Eddie. It's impossible to do it. When you're on the circuit, I can't throw the derail. God damn it. Well, they were off the rest of the night, trying to get the damn engine on. Couldn't get the Gillette stuff out and this and that, so there. And I came over and said, Joe, I said, this is what I do. The rule says you go this to completion, and then you put everything back to normal for the main operation. And when the switch engine is ready to come out, he asks you for permission, then you go and you do this again. Well, they were used to a guy just click on each end. And they bound in They said the signal was green and the derail was on. That can't be possible. That just don't make it. They each got 30-day suspension.
Wow.
That's a big suspension.
Yeah.
And I said, boy, I just told them. They held that against me for a long time. Being a big guy, I didn't take no crap.
Yeah. Oh, what the heck? What are you going to do?
Hey, I told it just like it was. I said, I did it by the book. How else was I going to do it? I didn't know any other way to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't work there 5 days a week like most of them. I said, I have to go by what I know to be the right way. Well, you threw the derail, and I said, Eddie, you know that can't happen. Well, they got 30 days. The fireman, the engineer, and the head brakeman
Wow.
got 30 days apiece. Well, Walt made an example of it. There was no more problems.
Yeah.
Then after that, they waited
Yeah.
for the green signal. Because my responsibility was, when they were in there switching, I had to have everything aligned for the guys coming off the north, going to Altoona, or going to the Twin Cities, or wherever they were headed. I had to have that all back so they could operate without any restrictive signal out here in the country or out there, because when you do that, you're gonna get a restricted signal somewhere out maybe 5 miles, like, you know, what's the name of that little thing west of Eau Claire? Where all-
Yukon Junction?
No, that was going toward the north. Can't remember the name of it. It was pretty near the Elk Mountain. Some little spot in the road out there where most of the electronic stuff was tied in, and that's where you got your outer signal for Eau Claire. And if that was yellow, you wanted to get a hold of your train right now. And because chances are the next one, maybe you're in, it may be yellow and green by that time, but because you were tangling with downtown Eau Claire traffic, you were tangling with one lane of traffic across the Eau Claire River Bridge, and so you could keep the coals through because you might have to get the damn thing stopped. Or somebody coming off the north, or whatever. So.
Well, you also had the Sioux and the Milwaukee coming up past that, didn't you?
Yep, Sioux Line real often, and Milwaukee, they both switched into Gillette, you know. There was 3 railroads switching.
I don't know how they ever kept that straight.
Oh. Well, they each one knew where their own tracks was, you know, and I had nothing to do with that, although their headlights were. Which is speaking of headlights. I was working Newton Avenue Tower. That's up in Superior East End. And the DSSNA, if you get a hold of any stuff marked DSSNA,
I have slides, but that's it.
Duluth, South Shore, and Ashland. And they had
Atlantic.
passenger trains.
Duluth, South Shore, and Atlantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Ashland.
No.
They went through Ashland.
Yeah, we went to Ashland. But they came, they looked at me, because I'm sitting on the Omaha going this way, and the Great Northern, and the NP going this way, and the DSSNA coming at me. Well, on my ship, which was usually third, they had the passenger train too. You know, they never sent the little guy up there. Some of those rods, in the wintertime, you go down to build a fire underneath to keep all the grease. So it was a little bit pliable anyway. But some of those rods that you put in those great big levers, you know, you pushed it in like this, and you get your shoulder behind that baby. And you had to move that rod maybe from, 75 yards away or more. That had to lift up that signal up there. And so it was cold. Superior East End was always cold.
Oh, it was cold as they.
Wind coming off the lake?
Oh. And then that particular night, I opened the draft down below on the stove, get nice and warm, and sat in a chair, and I think I might have dozed off. Woke up. Okay, it smells hot. Oh my God! I left the draft on. Man, out of that chair, down the step, and that damn stovepipe was cherry red. All the way to the floor. Bring her burnt the police down. So you know how to dampen it when you open up and you throw salt? I had rock salt.
Really?
Chimney, that's how you put chimney fires out.
Yep, you just knocks it out right.
Really?
Knocks it right down.
I don't know why.
It just does.
Must be something with the chemical reaction.
Yeah. But it knocks your flame down. You can just see the red coming down. Yeah. So the Great Northern, whenever they were leaving the big ore docks out there, and they were really coming up on the hole and headed west, they'd call me on the telephone, block phone, and say, we're coming out with an ore drag and we are really heavy tonight. So I told everybody else back and forth on the trains to get on the phone and just work me up one side and down there. So sorry boys, we got a big drag coming the Great Northern ore train. So, and if he stops, there's going to be hell to pay because he ain't going to get going till about Tuesday next week. So he'd come up out there, always banked on me. Hold that signal for me, man. I don't care what's coming. We held up passenger trains and everything else, but he'd come by there. Well, then there was a few pretty good guys on the NPOs. It was probably a Sunday night. Might have even been out that day. But I'm laying up on the collector's table, big long table there, my stove was over there. I said, I promptly went to sleep. Well, I woke up once and I rolled over and I looked out the window and said, God, that moon is big tonight. Wasn't the moon.
Wasn't the moon,
big
was it?
headlight from an NP steamer right there. And he knew I was sleeping, and about the time he saw me
He
move,
let her
he
go.
let that whistle go. Holy cow, must have levitated right up off. He started throwing switches like that. And they stopped, and they laughed, and they laughed, and they laughed. All it was an engine.
Oh,
And
like
nothing
engine.
else with them.
And here you thought it was a big drag, huh?
What? Well, I thought it was the moon.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
looking out the window, gee, that moon's awful close. But the DSA passenger train too was one that you liked to do, because he had to cross over like 4 tracks to get to where he was going, because he would cross the Omaha main line, and then he would cross Great Northern, and then he would cross the NP, then he would cross the Omaha switching tracks again before he would get on his line to go to Ashland. It was a real, back in those days, some of those were those puzzle switches. God,
What's that?
They gotta be cool with it. They were interlocking type switches, and I tell you, if they got a little bit out of line, it was crazy.
Or is that where it's like a
Yep,
diamond
they
and it just
slide.
slid?
Yep. Oh God, they always call those puzzle switches. My God, what a mess. But it was in the wintertime, but it was sometimes just impossible. You had to beat them over with a ball,
Really?
and that's how they got out of line.
I got to ride a couple sections of the old DSS and A line.